Welcome to the first episode of Nordic Textiles. We are Alicia and
Matteo.
And we are going to discuss with different guests from Nordic countries the traditions and the innovation of the fabrics that will improve our lives. My name is Alicia and I am a PhD student from the University of Turku in Finland. I work on smart textiles, photochromic smart textiles and self-cleaning smart textiles and all of the UV responsive smart textiles that you can imagine. What about you, Matteo?
I'm working in Aalto. I'm PhD in Aalto University. And I'm working with smart and e-textiles. And mainly I'm implementing some machine learning algorithm to improve the properties and the production of these e-textiles.
So why have you started podcast, Matteo?
So we were fighting in the bus during a working trip about the definition of smart textiles for each of us. Because we have apparently different opinions.
Since we have different backgrounds and different interests.
Yep.
So we might have adjust the definition to our own needs.
Yeah. Because for me, a smart textile is not just a responsive material. For me, it's like, for example, an hydrophobic material is not smart. And for me, it needs to adjust to external stimuli and adapt to the body or to the environment. That's my opinion.
I believe that we have different opinions on that matter. So in my opinion, smart textiles are the textiles that have additional functionalities on top of just being textiles. I work myself on the textiles that respond to the sun in the way that they clean themselves. So they are responsive, but the process is like so simple and so like discovered many years ago that I wouldn't call it any rocket science. And
but you think it's smart?
Yeah, I think it's very smart. Like, can you clean yourself under the sun?
Actually, yes, I can.
Can you kill all of the bacteria?
Well, with the UV light. Maybe we shouldn't go this
Yeah,
further.
but then you get a cancer.
Well, and then I die, and also that the textile will be bleached under the sun.
No, not really. It depends. When you have the for example, titanium dioxide or zinc oxide on the surface, it basically collects the UV light.
So it's the zinc oxide that is smart.
Yeah.
Not the textile.
Yeah. No, but smart textiles, they don't have to have nanoparticles inside them, so they respond to the environment.
So a coating is...
Yeah, a coating is enough. And the fact that the coating is on the substrate, so this is like one system.
One feature that the
textile
one
has. System.
Okay.
It's not like the coating itself exists and then there is like some cotton under it.
But since we have so divergent opinions, that's the reason why we decided to start this journey and invite experts to also hear their opinion, and maybe one day we will agree.
Or we will not.
But let's introduce our first guest, Jaana Vapaavuori.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I am super happy to be here and thank you for the invitation to participate.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, so I am a professor of functional materials working at Aalto University, and I established my group in 2019. So this spring it's gonna be I'm gonna complete my 5 years at Aalto University. So I would sort of say a disclaimer that during the 5 years, I've been entered the world of textile research, and I've learned a lot. But let's just say that my experience is approximately this 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we are super happy to have you here, actually, because we know in your MMD group you started working on biomaterials in general, solar cells. So we know you're working on a lot of different topics, and we wanted to ask you first how you started, how you started working on textiles in general, and because we know we have publication on the smart textiles, and we wanted to ask you to talk about it. Since the podcast is about textiles.
Yeah, sure. So this goes back to my postdoc times. During my postdoc, I was working mainly on nanopatterning of substrates with the block polymer approach. So it's a very neat approach where you can cover large areas of substrates with something that is nano-sized. And then I was thinking about what to do next, or how to take that to the next level, because you can easily use these nano-sized block polymer patterns as templates. But then I was thinking that if we're always just templating flat surfaces, so how could we take that to the next level? And then I was thinking it would be interesting to try out if we can also attach some nanoparticles on textiles. And then I talked to my postdoc supervisor, Kristina, and I was like, well, can I do like small stripes of polydimethylsiloxane, so PDMS? That would mimic textile, and then just dip coat on them and try to attach some nanoparticles on them. And then he was like, well, if you want to work with textiles, why do you want to do some stripes from PDMS that are like, thick and clumsy? So why wouldn't you just dip coat directly on textile fibers? And maybe that was the push that I needed. And I was like, yeah, like true, if we want to apply this to textiles, why then not to work with actual textile fibers? So that was the first push to this direction.
Well, really nice to know. And so, but how in your group now you started working on actual textiles? Because you started with nanostructure, right?
Yeah.
And the very beginning. So what pushed you to start with textile in your actual group now?
I would say that then it was this intention of where can we make use of these blockopolymer nanopatterns, and then the very first studies actually did concentrate on that can we attach a blockopolymer template and then some functional nanoparticles just directly on a filament. But then I think that led into the realization that if we just do these filaments, it's not yet a demonstration of an actual textile. So then we also started to look into making textiles out of the materials that we fabricate. And I also think it's been a good learning journey for me, because I also then tried to look for an angle that is less studied in materials research. So I tried to look what type of textile crafting techniques, for instance, would be such that would maybe still have a lot to give to the materials science community. And then I came up with this when I was younger. I participated in a study where they studied how to teach bobbin lace to adults. And then I had some memory of that, and I remember that, for instance, bobbin lace is a technique that is very versatile as compared to weaving and knitting. And then that was another push to move also to not just to functionalizing textile filaments on fibers, but also to study what kind of functional entities can we form through different crafting techniques.
That's really interesting to know, actually, because it wasn't in our script that, but now it came up to my mind, another question, actually, are you making just textiles, or you're using crafting techniques to achieve the smartness in textiles? So, well, thank you to answer even my further question.
Yeah, and I can briefly comment on that, because I think what's kind of very intriguing in textiles is that you can think about them as hierarchical systems. So you can embed functionality in different levels of hierarchy. So you can start from actually preparing the filament or fiber or yarn, and that can have the functionality in it. And then you can constitute the textile with different techniques, and also this hierarchical structure can bring another element to functionality. So.
So, Matteo, you said smart textiles.
Yep.
So maybe let's go to our next question and ask Jaana, what are the smart textiles?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I think during your podcast series, you will hear different answers to this. So I think there is not one single definition that the community would agree on. So like I start from the point of functional materials science and from like kind of starting from that perspective, I think smart textiles are textiles that are able to react to something in their environment, like a stimuli, change in the temperature, change in environment, humidity, those type of things, and that this change that they are able to bring is somehow useful or desirable. So of course that's then questionable that what is it that we humans need, but that is how I would define a smart textile. So a textile that is capable of making a change in its function as a response to environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say textiles are sort of smart enough to respond. If
I see. And how you're planning to achieve this smartness in textiles in your group? Like which are the current project or the novelties?
So one way of, I would count many e-textiles as part of smart textiles. And so in these electronically enhanced textiles, there is, for instance, the possibility that textile can sense changes. For instance, if you wear them very tight, so they could sense if there are significant changes in your blood pressure or some biochemical markers, and then send electronic signals to an app or so. But I try to have a different angle to this and study what type of other type of responsive textiles could we have than these electronically enhanced textiles. So to get rid of these electronic circuits. And as one example, maybe we have the most examples of temperatures that just react to temperature. So when the ambient temperature changes, the yarns can, for instance, contract. And then if we have a textile pattern that is, let's say, designed in a smart way, so then we can have large changes in the contraction and in the porosity of the actual textile.
So it's like a combination of the smartness of the fibers and the coils that you're making and the techniques you mentioned before. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course we are on the way to study what would then be the useful functions that we can produce with this. But at least, like, if you have textiles as some kind of, if you think about them as nets of pores or so you can, for instance, change the porosity and the breathability of a textile by changing the pore sizes.
So I believe, Jaana, you cannot achieve it yourself, right? Because you are talking about so many different functionalities. I believe that you collaborate with other researchers. So could you tell us something more about those collaborations?
Yeah. So I kind of try to embrace this interdisciplinary approach to material science and to research in general. And I think it's actually has been quite an interesting journey because I have tried to build a group so that we have multiple interdisciplinary experts present at the group level. So we have this like internal multidisciplinarity, and then also we have those projects where we then also have partners who have different disciplines. So it's this combination of internal and external interdisciplinarity. I don't know, I'm maybe a little bit on an abstract level, but that's how I see it. So yeah, and I mean, of course, like, let's say, like, I think to make actually impact in the world, so if we just do new materials, that's not enough. So we will need to be able to make some demonstrators that actually look like a textile and study their functionality and so on and so forth. So we need this type of expertise.
So do you have any designers in your group or among your collaborations?
Yeah, so we have one textile designer in the group, and then we have this big Nordforsk-funded interdisciplinary project where we have also design contributions from University of Borås from Sweden and via University College from Denmark. So those are maybe the most notable examples. But then, of course, in different type of events when we have exhibitions or so then of course we try to engage with whomever comes there and to have also input to the research through this engagement of greater public.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that this multidisciplinarity is becoming a key point in the research nowadays. Because at least I'm just a PhD student, but I remember when I did my master and I saw other PhDs in my university, they were mainly focusing only on one aspect, I don't know, chemistry or just industrial chemistry or physics. And it's nice to see that nowadays the current trend is to combine and try to make prototypes out of it, out of what you're doing. It's a really interesting aspect. And I think it's also easy in Aalto where you work, because I know they have the design department, they have chemistry department, engineering department. So it's also, I guess, easy to find collaboration and making the product out of it directly without waiting ages to just send the samples. And
yeah, it's sort of thinking about, I mean, textiles as one of the fields in the world where, like, you know, large changes to the industry are needed for making it anyhow sustainable. But if you think about other current problems as climate change, so there has been like climate research from the perspective of atmospheric sciences has been there for tens of years, and they have produced a lot of good data and a lot of good papers about what's happening to the climate. But to actually have a real impact on the society, I believe that type of research will need to be combined with social sciences and understanding of, and political sciences, of understanding of how people work, how politicians work, how can we actually change things. So that's maybe another example where like high degree of interdisciplinary is needed to have a real impact on the world. So
since you mentioned there are a lot of different smart textiles and e-textiles in your research and in other research and other universities, what do you think are the current main trends, and what product do you think is reachable in the near future to the public, let's say, and be commercialized soon?
If we talk about current trends, I would name at least this. How would one call it? The entrance of artificial intelligence, or the merging of artificial intelligence and textile, is definitely one of the big trends at the moment. And if you think about this type of textiles that can sense, for instance, so for their different type of AI models can really help to make them to work better. For instance, if you have a glove that senses the position of your hands, so then you can use this neural network modeling to actually decode the signals that you get from your smart glove into what does that mean in terms of in what position your hand is. So I would say that's maybe the biggest trend that I see at the moment, is that how can we use artificial intelligence to make some of our smart textiles better. That's something also that we are sort of engaging a little bit with. So we have worked with these thermal actuators, for instance, in my group, and they're how to make a good thermal actuator. There are like multiple parameters that can impact on that, and we are hoping that with the help of artificial intelligence, this type of Bayesian optimization, we would be able to proceed a bit faster with the research. So we would be able to solve what is the best thermal actuator a bit faster with the help of AI. So that's also a trend that I can see, let's say, within my group.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it can be scalable nowadays or in the near future, like even for industries or startups, not just for research? What's your opinion about it?
What do you mean exactly?
Not just using research, but maybe even implement, like if a startup wants to make these thermal actuators directly in textiles or in a cloth or fabric in general, do you think they can even use this AI to achieve good results and commercialize a product, not just for the bare research itself?
Yeah, I think it depends on what's the objective of using AI. But for sure, like if you are using AI to optimize algorithms for your textiles that are able to sense, so then yes, the algorithms will be part of the product that you would be selling. Then if you think about this case of the thermal actuators, there I think that like then we would need to define the objective that, okay, if we want to scale the production up, what would be the objective of using AI in that? So maybe there are ways of also speeding up the upscaling, if you know what I mean. But I mean, maybe that's not yet that clear to me, that what would be the role of the AI in that. How would it make it faster than traditional or more conventional scaling up?
It sounds really interesting to combine technology and textiles, but how is that going to work when it comes to the sustainability aspects of the product? We know that new European Union legislation highlights the importance of actually recycling the final product. So does your group actually work on this problem, or what are your solutions for that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I think, especially with this type of more conventional e-textiles that I mentioned some examples, so they currently struggle with this recyclability aspect, because if you need to have different type of conducting yarns that are typically made out of silver or other metals, and then you have many different materials combined in your textile, potentially even some circuit board there. So of course, that's very difficult to recycle without like manually picking the different parts apart from one another. And that's why there is this bigger design field, so-called design for disassembly, where researchers try to take this into account. However, I would still say that to actually enable recycling in a large scale, the best option is to reduce the number of different materials, to try to go even towards almost like monomaterial textiles. And that's something that we try to go with my group, with this idea of getting rid of the electric circuits in the textiles. So then that will at least allow us to have textiles that don't have any metallic components in them, and that would still be able to function. So that's of course one of the key goals there. Then another aspect that comes to my mind is biodegradability. That's also a topic that we've been touching a little bit. So in terms of trying to make those type of sensors that could be implemented into textiles completely out of biodegradable materials, that is possible. We have been able to do that, but then still the big question that needs to be solved is like you have those totally biodegradable sensors, then you can make the actual fabric out of filaments that would biodegrade. But then if you need to connect the sensor to something that will read it, or something that will send the signal out of the textile, so that's maybe still the one question that would need to be solved. Yeah.
Yes.
And what about some other sustainable aspects of your research? Because we know that now sustainability is like actually the main topic of like design and other fields. And we also know that the Nordic countries, they pay lots of attention to sustainability. So how, except the recycling, how your group address those problems related to sustainability?
Yeah. So I think, like, since we approach things from a materials perspective, so one important question is this like raw material sourcing. So where do the materials come from? And there we of course try to move as close as possible to these circular approaches, so that all the materials that come to the processes would come already from some circular loop. So like using waste materials, or using side stream materials from other industrial streams. So we have, for instance, implemented starch into polyamide. So that starch that can come, for instance, out of potato, and for instance from potato peels, that would be then a waste material or a side stream material, and then that could be implemented into a textile. So I think this raw material question is very important to us. And then of course we also try to raise awareness, and I think that's a big part of sustainability. So for instance, we have been able to make demonstrators of how to do textiles, like cellulosic fibers, out of just local plants, which is a known thing, of course, but just to bring more awareness on that there are a lot of big sustainability problems related to cotton production, And if we can just showcase that we can do textiles that have the same properties or even better properties out of local plants. So just maybe through this type of demonstrators and artistic work, we can also a little bit criticize the current textile industry and production of certain raw materials in there.
Mm-hmm. So you think this can be the main challenge among all the researchers at this point?
You mean raising the awareness, or?
Raising the awareness and find materials that that anyway can impact less on the.
I think maybe like from our perspective, of course, I would like to again highlight that this type of interdisciplinary perspective is needed to achieve real sustainability, but maybe the angle that we can bring is related to the raw material sourcing, that what are all the possible raw materials that we could use for textiles, and out of all that big bunch of materials, what are the ones that are actually reasonable and sustainable choices, and then studying that and then bringing awareness about that, I think. Yeah.
We actually have one last question that is more philosophical and anthropological, let's say, since anyway, like textiles in general always played a key role in the society, starting from warming up yourself, and then it developed to fashion. What do you think will be the role in the future of e-textiles? Because we are seeing nowadays a lot of new technologies, such as the what they are called, the new Apple products, the virtual goggles, whatever. I don't remember the name. Yeah. And we can see people as zombie-like in the streets and things like that. So, in this point of view, what do you think will be the impact of the e-textiles that you are producing and the people are researching about?
Yeah. So if you think about e-textiles, maybe two trends that I'm currently kind of excited about. One of them is how we could use e-textiles to actually merge the connection with the body and then the virtual reality that you would see through the goggles. Because, for instance, if you just think about monitoring sports, so the most common thing to do that is probably to wear some kind of a wristband or a smart watch. But with those type of devices, we only know some markers from the body, but we don't, for instance, know much about in which position your body is. So, for instance, they don't give information about whether your posture is very non-ergonomic or ergonomic. So that's maybe something that I'm excited to see, if through e-textiles and combining them to virtual reality, we can actually produce things that can then, for instance, help people to reach better ergonomic positions in their work, especially maybe people doing physical work, but also for us doing office work. I think that would be a great help. So, and also then it's interesting to see if with this type of technology we could help also teaching skills, like motorical skills, like let's say playing the guitar. So if we have e-textile gloves combined to virtual reality, so maybe the gloves could kind of give you some signals of if you need to press a bit harder or a bit less hard, and that might be an interesting way of combining learning and teaching to e-textiles and virtual reality. So those are sort of visions that I'm excited about, and especially, let's say, if they could be used in rehabilitation of like stroke patients or so maybe that could bring an advantage. Then again, like that's if we talk strictly about e-textiles, but then maybe one vision that the other vision that I'm excited about is that, okay, can we produce textiles like that without actually using e-textiles? So for instance, textiles that could help people with some limited mobility or so. So if we have these type of textiles that we are producing in the lab, that you can control their stiffness by temperature or maybe with some other signal, so then you could make clothes that it's easier to put them on, and then they will tighten themselves. So you don't, for instance, need to put buttons or so. So that might be helpful for some people.
I will ask maybe another question
Yeah,
which
of
came to
course.
my mind.
Go ahead.
Why we don't see e-textiles on the market currently?
Yeah,
where they are, if the perspective of having e-textiles is like so heartwarming and so exciting, why we don't have them yet?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think part of it is that the technology is somewhat new, but I think that's maybe a question that we should ask from somebody having a better understanding about markets than I have. But I also think that maybe we haven't yet identified the need for where do we actually need exactly this type of technology, and maybe the need won't be that big. So maybe there will be like very, very clear niche markets, like for instance this rehabilitation of stroke patients, where they could really make a big difference, but maybe it's not something that everybody will need in their everyday life. I think that's a big question. Also with respect to sustainability, that should be asked, that should the technology be developed mainly for those markets that really need it, or do we need I don't know, maybe I can ask this back to you. So do you think that we need this type of technology in everyday life? I don't know.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think that we don't. We actually don't, because we have like smartwatch, we have smartphone, we have all of those smart stuff, and we're already like so addicted to the technology. But then from the other hand, why stop developing technology? Now we don't see much sense in textiles to use them like every single day, but maybe in the future they will actually like help to save our lives. So I don't know. I don't think that I would buy myself now a smart t-shirt which would tell me about my heartbeat, but maybe in 20 years I wouldn't like imagine my life without that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matteo?
Yeah, I actually do agree in a sense. I personally, I don't have anything against smartwatches and these other smart devices, but I don't like them myself, so I don't own one. And for myself, I don't see the need to have something that just gives feedback on my heartbeat or how well I sleep. In a sense, for me, I wake up and if I'm tired, maybe I know I didn't sleep well. For me, that is enough at the moment. But if this technology can be researched and developed to actually help people, I guess this would be the biggest goal we can have from the smart textiles field. So,
however, Jaana said at the very beginning that smart textiles are not only e-textiles.
yeah.
So we have also like self-cleaning textiles, self-healing textiles, maybe in the future cooking textiles. So this is what I said. I don't know. I do use smart textiles in the sense that I have a waterproof jacket. Can we call it smart, since it has might having some nanoparticles that actually make this textile hydrophobic. Therefore, I'm not wet under this jacket, right?
That's a good question, because it's not a response, because we were talking about the responsive materials, and the jacket is just hydrophobic in a sense. If you take an hydrophobic materials, it's already hydrophobic. Or
Yeah, but
the coating is
then we can call it a passive smart textile, right? Not the textiles don't have to be active to be smart.
Yeah, or I guess that goes exactly to the thing that we were talking in the beginning, that the field has a bit different definitions for the smart textile. So, like, let's say from my perspective, I would call this type of a jacket smart that would change its hydrophobicity related to the weather, for instance. That, like, if it's not really raining, so then it would actually open some parts, and then it would be much more breathable so that you wouldn't get too sweaty. And then when it starts raining, so it would close those pores, and then it would actually protect you from the rain. So maybe as another example, one vision that we are working with is this type of agricultural textiles. So there, I think this type of protection, both from extensive humidity and extensive drought, is very important. It's going to be more important with the proceeding climate change. So if we would have agricultural textiles that, you know, when the soil needs to be ventilated, so then they would have larger pores, and when the soil needs to be protected against drought, so then they would cover it more. So for instance, that's maybe somewhere where I can see like this type of actually useful scenario. And another thing is related to the interior textiles. So it's also important to remember maybe many e-textiles are these type of wearables, but the technology that we are trying to develop also aims for instance, curtains. So can we have curtains that will help in regulating the building temperature by when it's like too sunny, so then they would be reflecting more, and when it's very cloudy and we need to use energy to heat the buildings, so then they would open up and let more sunlight in. Yeah, so I guess that's a good thing to finish on that, because I think that's also one of the messages that I want to bring with the research, is that maybe the bigger impact is actually in different type of interior textiles than something that we wear. So that's kind of good to remember.
That's a good point, I would say. Yeah, because we talk a lot about wearables and t-shirts and dresses, but yeah, like it's important to remember that textiles are not only on us, but like around us in house, and can be useful for other environments.
Yeah, and I also believe that the question about smart textiles will be repeated with every single guest.
Yeah.
Totally.
To collect the data about their opinion on about the definition.
Can be useful also for us and our doctoral defense one
yeah,
day.
Yeah, no, and I think that's exactly the thing, that to reach actually bigger consensus and making impact, like for this type of discussion of what is a smart textile, you will need other perspective also than mine, because I come still from the background of applied physics at the end of the day. So my point of view is still, let's say, very mechanistic, if you want to classify it. So, yeah.
Okay, then thank you so much, Jaana, for your time.
Yeah, thanks
it was
for the invitation.
Yeah, it was a big pleasure, and I hope our guests liked our little discussion, even though it was like the first time that we recorded it. So probably we're going to cut it off. Anyways.
We can keep it.
Anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you.